The plains had been restless all day, not loud, not storming, just uneasy, like an animal that knew night would bring blood. Dust moved in slow spirals across the hard-packed earth, curling around fence posts and the sun-bleached bones of cattle long dead. The sky hung low and copper-colored, pressing down on the land until even the horses felt it, their hooves striking the dirt with dull impatience. Elias Crow rode alone. He always did. His horse, a dark bay gelding with a scar down its flank, moved steady beneath him, breathing deep and even. Elias sat tall in the saddle. Dust, clinging to the hem of his coat, had pulled low to keep the sun from his eyes. He looked like the land, worn, quiet, and unforgiving. The town of Red Hollow appeared ahead, barely more than a scar on the earth. A crooked line of wooden buildings leaned into the wind as if they'd given up standing straight years ago. Smoke from cook fires and chimneys rose thin and grey, twisting into the evening sky. Red Hollow was not a place a man visited for pleasure. It was where men came when they had nowhere else to go. Elias slowed his horse at the edge of town. He scanned the street the way a gunman scans a room, slow, deliberate, measuring danger in every shadow. Horses were tied out front of the saloon, their heads low, reins slack. Laughter spilled from inside, thick and rough, the sound of men drinking to forget who they were. The Red Hollow Saloon stood at the center of it all, 2 stories tall, weather-beaten wood, windows clouded with smoke and grime. The sign creaked as it swung, the painted letters cracked and fading. Elias hadn't planned to stop, but fate rarely asked permission. He dismounted, tying his horse to the rail, and stepped onto the boardwalk. Each plank groaned under his weight, echoing his presence. A few heads turned as he passed. Conversations dipped, then resumed in hushed tones. They recognized him, not by name, but by the way he moved. Men like Elias carried something heavy inside them. Other men felt it the way prey feels a predator. Inside the saloon, the air was thick with sweat, whiskey, and old regret. Lamps cast yellow light over scarred tables and stained floors. A piano played badly in the corner. Cards slapped against wood. Glasses clinked. Elias took it all in without looking like he was looking. Then he saw her. She stood behind the bar, wiping down a glass that was already clean. Her hair was dark, pulled back loose, strands escaping to frame a face that looked too soft for a place like this. Not pretty in a polished way, pretty like the land before it was broken. There was strength in her posture, but her eyes carried something quieter, watchful, tired. Her name was Clara Whitfield. Elias didn't know that yet, but the moment stretched when their eyes met told him she mattered. She looked at him longer than most men did, not with interest, with recognition, like she knew what kind of man he was. He took a seat at the bar. "Whiskey," he said. She poured without asking how he took it, set the glass down gently, fingers brushing the wood like she was grounding herself. "You passing through?" she asked. "Always am," Elias replied. She studied him for a moment. Men who say that usually aren't. Before he could answer, the saloon door slammed open. The laughter died instantly. 3 men entered, boots heavy, spurs loud. Their coats were clean compared to the rest of the room, too clean. The leader wore a thin smile and eyes like cold iron. Arlen Voss. Elias felt the shift before anyone said a word. Trouble had a way of announcing itself to men who had lived long enough. Voss tipped his hat toward Clara. "Evening, miss." Clara stiffened, just slightly, but Elias noticed. "Bar's open," she said flatly. Voss laughed and motioned his men forward. "Drinks for my boys." "Put it on the tab." "We don't do tabs," Clara said. The room held its breath. Voss leaned closer. "You do for me." Elias could see the calculation in her eyes, the memory of something unspoken. Fear, yes, but also defiance. She poured. Elias drank his whiskey slow, listening. Voss's gaze drifted to him. "You looking at me, cowboy?" Elias met his eyes calmly. "Just drinking." That was enough to offend a man like Voss. "You new in town?" Voss asked. "No." That answer carried weight. Voss smiled thinly. "Funny. I know everyone worth knowing." Elias set his glass down. "Then you know when to walk away." The tension snapped like a dry branch. Voss stepped closer. "Or what?" Before Elias could answer, a sudden shout came from outside. "Fire!" The word cut through the saloon like a bullet. Smoke began to creep under the door. Then came the screams. Panic erupted. Chairs toppled. Men rushed for the exits. Someone knocked over a lamp. Flames caught fast, licking up the walls like they'd been waiting. The saloon became chaos in seconds. Clara froze behind the bar. Elias saw it the moment fear stole her legs. "Move!" someone shouted. The staircase at the back caught fire, blocking her escape. Smoke thickened. Heat surged. Elias didn't think. He grabbed her wrist. "Come on." She shook her head, coughing. "It's blocked. I can't." The ceiling cracked. Flames roared. Elias wrapped his coat around her face. "Breathe through this." He pulled her over the bar, lifting her with a strength that surprised even him. The heat burned his skin. Smoke clawed at his lungs. The front exit collapsed. Their only way was through the fire. Clara clung to him, trembling. "You'll die." Elias tightened his grip. "Not today." He charged forward. The world became flame and pain and noise. And as the roof began to fall, Elias Crow carried Clara Whitfield into the fire, knowing some choices, once made, could never be undone. The sun rose over Red Hollow with a hard, unforgiving glare. The plains stretched out, dust shimmering like gold in the early light, as if the land itself had been scorched by the fire that tore through the saloon the night before. Elias Crow sat on his horse just beyond the town limits, staring at the charred remains. Blackened beams leaned at impossible angles, smoke curling from the ashes. The smell of burned wood and scorched whiskey lingered like a ghost over the street. Clara Whitfield stood beside him, her hands still trembling, wrapped in a thick wool coat borrowed from the sheriff. Her hair was streaked with soot, eyes red but alert. Neither spoke at first. Words were unnecessary. The silence itself carried the weight of what had happened and what might come next. Finally, Clara's voice broke the quiet. "They say the fire was an accident," she said, but her tone betrayed doubt. Elias's eyes narrowed. "Accidents don't move this fast." A sudden sound of boots on the boardwalk made both of them turn. Harlan Voss had returned, his men flanking him like shadows given flesh. His coat was now singed along the hem, but his grin was wider than ever. "Well, well, looks like the cowboy and the barmaid survived," Voss said, his voice smooth but dangerous. "I gotta say, I admire courage when it's paired with stupidity." Elias dismounted. His horse snorted, pawing at the dirt, sensing the rising tension. "Why are you here, Voss?" Elias asked, calm but hard as steel. Voss tilted his hat back, eyes glinting. "I came to make sure no one's grateful." "Town owes me, and I don't forget." Clara stepped forward. "Leave him alone, Harlan. This doesn't concern you." Voss chuckled. "Oh, it concerns me plenty. That cowboy of yours, he interfered with my plans." His hand brushed the pistol at his hip, plans that included more than just a little fire. Elias's hand hovered near his own weapon, but he didn't draw yet. Not with Clara so close. He had learned long ago that patience often weighed heavier than a gun. Then the town's sheriff arrived, a wiry man named Jenkins, his badge dull and scratched from years of doing the best he could with too little. "Everyone calm down," he barked. "This ain't the time for old scores." Voss only laughed. "Sheriff, your time is long gone." Before the tension could boil over, Clara spoke again, her voice steadier now. "We need to find out who did this. Someone set the fire." Elias nodded. "And I know exactly who had motive. Voss or someone like him." The sheriff hesitated. "Careful what you accuse. Crow, town's been burned before, some blame and some just disappear." Elias met his gaze. "I'm not leaving until I find answers." The investigation began in the shadows. Elias and Clara rode out together, moving across dusty plains toward the neighboring ranches, talking quietly about what they knew. Their words brushed against each other like hands that had not yet met, careful, deliberate, loaded with meaning. The land stretched endlessly, hills rolling into one another, cattle grazing in the distance, wind kicking up dust in miniature storms around their boots and hooves. At the Whitfield Ranch, Clara revealed more than she intended. Family secrets, debts owed to men with too much power, and a land dispute that had left many wanting fire and ruin to claim, what they could not take with law or gun. Elias listened, absorbing every detail, forming a map of motives and dangers in his mind. By late afternoon, the pair discovered signs of Voss's men, tracks in the soft dirt, cigarette butts still warm, the faint smell of whiskey that lingered like a warning. "Voss wants a message," Elias said quietly, "and he knows we'll find him before he finds us." Clara looked at him, eyes searching. "And if he does?" Elias tightened his jaw. "Then we make him regret it." Night fell with a cold wind that cut through the plains like a knife. Elias and Clara camped on a small ridge overlooking Red Hollow, the town's lights twinkling weakly below. Shadows danced across their faces from the fire they built, both warming and exposing them. "I should leave," Clara said suddenly. "You shouldn't be here with me." "You saved your life because I ran into a fire," Elias replied. "I'm not about to let a little danger stop me now." Her lips parted as if to respond, but the wind carried her words away. The unspoken tension between them hung thick, charged as if the land itself held its breath. Suddenly a gunshot rang out in the distance. Horses neighed in terror, a barn door slammed somewhere in town, and smoke began curling from the direction of the Voss homestead. Elias grabbed his rifle. "He's making his move. We've got to stop him before more fire spreads." Clara's hand brushed his arm. "Together," she said. Elias gave a brief nod. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. The plains had tested him his whole life, and he knew survival, justice, and the people worth saving always demanded action. As they rode toward the flames, the night seemed to swallow them, leaving only the hiss of wind, the pounding of hooves, and the certainty that once you confront a man like Voss, nothing would ever be the same. If you're enjoying this cinematic Western story, make sure to like the video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter.